Hello my YouTuber friends, in these videos I am going to give you a 2-week travel guide for Iceland. With that said, in these videos it will be divided into 4 parts that will cover all over this amazing island. Before we get into the video, please take a screenshot of a list of things that you should know before you embarking on your trip. In part 1, we are going to start off with one of the world's famous hikes called Laugavegur. It starts off in Landmannalauga to Pórsmokk, or you can also hike the other way around. We started off the hike from Pórsmokk. To get to Pórsmokk, we took a shuttle from Reykjavík all the way to Pórsmokk, and the reason we took the shuttle, it is because of some really deep river crossings. Alright guys, let's start the hike. And to be honest, we didn't know what to expect, the fact that we started the hike the other way around. With that said, it was an incredible experience because by starting off the hike from Pórsmokk, you get to enjoy the hot spring when you arrive in Landmannalauga. Also, instead of doing it in 4 days, we actually did it in 3 days and it wasn't too tough at all. Alright guys, I hope the hike was an incredible experience. So right now, let's go chasing waterfalls together. These waterfalls that I'm pointing out has a very unique feature. The first waterfall that I'm pointing out is that you can actually walk behind it from one end to the other, and just 10 minutes walks from there, you will come to another waterfall that is actually inside a cave. So before we get into another waterfall, let's just make a pit stop, and this itself is actually a man-made cave that happened to be the largest man-made cave in Iceland. And it is really easy, it's just right off of the ring road. You just park and you walk up there and you go up the hill for a better view. This waterfall that I'm showing you guys right now, you might have already seen it from all of the waterfall pictures in Iceland, and this is called Skógafoss. Let's take a break from exploring waterfalls and then come to this area with the dramatic black sand and sea cliffs called Vik. So we started off by going up to the top of this peninsula called Dyrhólaey. From there you get an incredible view of the black sand beach and also the nearby sea stacks and the lighthouse. This is an area that you just want to hike to every single corners of this peninsula. As you come down from the top of the peninsula, you will go down to this black sand beach that you can get a good view of the famous sea stacks. And also if you show up between the month of May and August, you might be able to get to spot puffins as they come to the cliff to nest. On top of that, there are the basalt columns that you can actually climb up and take some photos. If you decided to spend a night in Vik, just make sure that in the morning you go for a walk on the black sand beach just right by the town. Before we get too far into the ring road, we need to talk about this small and charming capital city of Iceland called Reykjavík. As you're walking through the town, you cannot miss this magnificent cathedral. Just make sure to go up to the bell tower for a great view of the city itself. Also, if you want a very fun and interesting experience, make sure to go explore Phallological Museum. In terms of restaurants in Reykjavík, I highly recommend the Fish Company. The food was incredibly top-notch and it was quite affordable. So Iceland is actually consuming almost 100% of its energy coming from the renewable sources. This museum is very important because it will walk you through how Iceland can actually achieve that. A very unique experience that you can actually do in Silfra is that if you happen to have a dry suit certification, you can go dive between the 2 tectonic plates. In part 2, we are going to go explore the biggest glacier in Iceland. As the glacier is melting, it creates the erosion that eventually becomes this gorge that is almost about 2 kilometers long. And you can actually walk on the top of the gorge looking down to the bottom of it. As you are driving along the ring road, just make sure to look to your left side. If you're going north, you will come to this mountain peak that is actually very famous for the photographers. In the same area, there is a nature reserve called Skaftafell. This reserve has 2 waterfalls, and one of the waterfalls happened to be one of my favorite waterfalls in Iceland. Also, there is a hike that essentially a triangle that will lead you to the 2 waterfalls and the glacier lookout that will definitely be one of the highlights of your trip. The reason this waterfall is one of my favorites, it is because of its unique feature with the basalt columns on either side of the fall. If you hike about 90 minutes from the waterfall, you will get to this glacier lookout that essentially will make you feel close and personal with the glacier that is flowing down from the top of the mountain, going down to the lagoon at the bottom. Honestly, the feeling when you're looking out to the glacier is quite uncomparable. So there are several glacier lagoons that you can actually take a boat and get close to the edge of the glacier itself. With that said, this particular lagoon is actually more quiet with the same tour experience. So something special about this particular glacier lagoon is that some of the glacier that's being chipped away is being washed into the ocean, and then some of them ended up getting stuck on the shore, and this is how it got its name, the Diamond Beach. Before we get into one of my most exciting places that I want to mention, we have to talk about this stunning peninsula. And particularly, you can just drive up from the ring road to the lighthouse, and then from there, if you have a drone, it is a great place to fly it so that you can get to see the peninsula all the way from the sky. Alright guys, I am incredibly so excited to share this magical place with you. It is called Stoknes. The best way that I can describe this place is that it is truly a heaven on earth. It is such a great spot to watch sunrise or sunset against the backdrop of the mountain range. It is also sometimes called the abandoned Viking village. It is because of this village that was built as part of a movie prop that actually never gets shot. In part 3, we're going to explore the northeast side of Iceland, and we're going to start off by hiking up to the waterfall that is one of my favorites. It takes about 90 minutes to hike up to Hundafoss. Along the way, you will come across the smaller one. With that said, Hundafoss, something unique about it is that it's surrounded by basaltic strata with thin red layers of clay. The next hike that we are going to do used to not be popular at all. When I first did it, I had to actually follow directions from someone's posting it in Google. The hike will take you to the bottom of Stuðlagil Canyon. The canyon itself has the highest number of basalt columns in Iceland, and the canyon was created by the glacier flowing from the highland to the north side of Iceland. Alright guys, let's go for an adventure together, obviously in a 4x4 car. The road can be bumpy, but it's so worth it. You will come across the largest power plant in Iceland, and just downstream, the water that's flowing from the plant is going through this very steep canyon. So this is the reason that we took on that adventure, is to come to this natural hot spring that is hidden in the middle of the mountain. And honestly, this is the kind of spot that I prefer. I have a lesson learned to share with you guys. So we were trying to get to Lake Askir. So even with our 4x4 car, we couldn't make it all the way because the river was way deeper than our cars. So just something to keep in mind, just make sure to have the right vehicle for wherever you want to go. Alright guys, so let's get back on the ring road safe and sound, and we are going to go explore the second most powerful waterfall in Europe. It's called Dettifoss. So just down the road from Dettifoss, you will come to this area that smells just like rotten eggs. It is a geothermal spot that has boiling mud pots with high temperature surrounded by sulfur crystals of different colors. Just a short drive over the mountain, you will come to this volcanic lake that it's called Lake Mývatn. Just a random fact, there's a lot of little flies in this area. On the south side of the lake, there are also these pseudo craters that are formed by the lava flows. It takes about 3 hours of driving to get to the capital city of northern Iceland called Akureyri, and this is also where the only toll road in Iceland is. However, there is a detour around it. You definitely do not want to miss part 4. I definitely saved the best for last. We will start with this 15-meter tall basalt island looking out into the ocean that resembles a dragon or a rhino. Without further ado, I would like to welcome you to the West Fjords. So the West Fjords tend to be forgotten by a lot of tourists due to the fact that it is quite far from all the other traveling destinations. But with that said, guys, take my words for it, you would not regret it if you decided to go explore there. So camping is a great option, and it also allows for flexibilities as you are hopping from places to places in Iceland. And I do want to point this amazing campsite in the West Fjords, and it was truly a highlight, and it was even better than just a hotel. Alright guys, if you want to have a once-in-a-lifetime experience, you definitely need to go hike in Hornstrandir Nature Reserve. This nature reserve has become a territory for the Arctic fox because it has been uninhabited since 1950s. Also, there are no infrastructure and very few tourists. Almost all of the ferries that go to Hornstrandir leave from Ísafjörður. With that said, a round-trip ferry ticket costs about $250. The most famous hike in Hornstrandir is the area around the Horn in Hornvik. To shorten our hiking path, we took the ferry to Víkurfjara and then take the return ferry from Hornvik. The ferry arrives in Víkurfjara around 4 p.m. From there, we start our hike right away. The hike from Víkurfjara terminal to Hornvik campsite is about 6.5 miles. Since we have only about 2.5 days on the nature reserve, it was the right idea for us to start our hike right away. With that said, you cannot just camp anywhere outside of the designated campsites, so we actually arrived in the Hornvik campsite at about 9 p.m. Alright guys, here we are at the Hornvik campsite. It's definitely one of the most beautiful campsites I've been. And on top of that, in the morning, don't forget to take a stroll on the beach. You might spot something amazing in the water. Alright, this is the big day. We're going to do our hike to the Horn. It is a loop that wraps around the Horn and come back to the campsite. With that said, the hike itself is also about 6.5 miles. There's one section early on in the hike that you do need to cross a river. This hike will take you to the very beautiful and famous tall rising cliff called the Horn. On top of that, you will get a chance to spot Arctic foxes. There are two morphs in this nature reserve. It's the white morph and the blue morph. With that said, the white morph is a lot more rare to spot. Something to keep in mind is that the weather in Hornstrandir is very unpredictable. It can be rainy and windy, which affect the visibility. So a little fun fact, it actually took me 3 times to try to get to Hornstrandir. And that is due to the fact that the ferry only runs from May to August. And on top of that, the weather can be really unpredictable. It's so hard to get a really sunny day in Hornstrandir. However, on a very clear day, nothing can compare to the view of the sunrise and the sunset. On day 3, we decided to go on a hike before catching our ferry at 3 p.m. back to Ísafjörður. The hike itself, it's called Reykjavík, and it's about 4 hours out and back, so basically you get to see the Horn from the other sides of the peninsula. And be careful, there's part of the hike that can be quite scary because you are walking on a narrow trail with the cliff on the side. So in summary, I do have to say, Hornstrandir was just once-in-a-lifetime experience. It was truly an amazing place to be if you love nature and want to escape civilization. And on top of that, on the way back, we spot so many whales, and that was truly the perfect cherry on top.
Yeah! Goodbye.
I hope you guys enjoyed the beauty of Hornstrandir like I did. Also, now that we're back onto the mainland, we are going to go check out supposedly the most beautiful waterfalls in Iceland called Dynjandi, and it is often compared to a bridal veil because of the shape of the very top waterfall. So before we get to one of the few red sand beaches in Iceland, we're going to stop by this shipwreck called BA64. You can actually climb inside it and go through the different compartments, and also you can go up to the very top. As you are driving down to the red sand beach, keep in mind that the road can be very bumpy, so it is very important for you to have a 4x4 car. So the best view for the actual beach is actually as you are driving down, there is a lookout spot for it. I truly hope that you guys enjoy watching this video so far. With that said, before we finish our video, we are going to talk about this national park called Skaftafell. Something special about this national park is that it has one of the most photographed mountain peaks in Iceland, and it's called Gljufrabui. I also included some really beautiful sites surrounding the national park that I think it might worth your time to visit. So if you do have a limited amount of time to visit the national park, you can actually pick and choose from this list to see which one would worth it. Another thing that I want to point out is this small fishing village called Anastapi. There's a lot of things for you to see, so make sure you hike all around the village. On the other hand, if you feel brave enough, you can try to take a picture on this bridge. Thank you so much guys for watching this video, and I hope that you find some really good information to use for your trip to Iceland. So let's go travel.